Our first example problem today asks us what is being oxidized and what is being reduced. To answer this question, first we need to assign oxidation numbers. The chloride in the palladium 2 chloride compound is going to be -1 because this compound is a salt. So that chloride is going to have the charge that it has in the ionic compound. The palladium will then be 2+. To make sure that our -1 times 4 plus a mystery number will equal -2. The cadmium being by itself will be 0. Palladium by itself will also be 0. Chloride being an ion will be -1. And the cadmium on the right will be +2. So to answer that question about what is being oxidized, our oxidation is going to be the number that goes up. We can see that the cadmium metal turns from 0 to 2+. So that one will be our oxidation. And the palladium number goes from 2+ to 0, so that will be our reduction. The second question on this example, write the half reactions that occur in the two half cells. This is exactly like when we were balancing oxidation-reduction reactions. The ox half reaction is going to be for the cadmium metal, changes to cadmium 2+ ions, and expels 2 electrons. The reduction will be the other part, where the palladium goes from being 2+ charge to being 0. To go from being 2 positive to 0, that palladium needed to absorb 2 electrons. Now these half reactions are balanced. The next question, which electrode is the anode and which is the cathode? To answer this question, it's actually really helpful to remember a really short phrase. Red cat and ox. In this case, the reduction is going to be associated with the cathode. So the cathode will be the palladium metal, and the anode will be the cadmium. The next question is actually trying to ask us which one of the electrodes are the electrons flowing towards. So we need to remember what the half reactions are. For example, the oxidation was the cadmium changing into cadmium 2+ ions. As this process happens, electrons actually leave that electrode. They're not flowing towards it. So that must mean that the electrons are flowing towards the palladium in the other half reaction. Again, notice how in the second half reaction with the palladium, the electrons are being absorbed by that palladium by the palladium ions to make that palladium ion turn into palladium metal. So the electrons in the wire flow towards palladium metal. The last question for this example In which direction do the cations and anions migrate through the solution? Explain. Well, there's a couple of different things that this question could be asking. I interpret it as which way are the ions flowing in the salt bridge. In a salt bridge, you would see that the cadmium electrode and the palladium electrode are going to be producing or consuming cations. The palladium metal will be consuming cations, so there will be an overwhelming negative charge left over in that area. And the cadmium electrode will be producing cations, so there will be an overwhelming amount of positiveness. In the salt bridge, you'll see that negative ions, like nitrate, for example, will flow towards the cadmium cell. Positive ions, like potassium, will flow towards the negative area.